She pretended to be a millionaire's wife for 1 week, but then the unexpected happened. Asterisk. The rain hammered against the windows of the small coffee shop where Emma Rodriguez sat clutching her phone. Her hands trembled as she read the text. From the hospital billing department for the third time. Her younger brother's surgery would cost $60,000, and insurance would only cover half. As a part-time librarian and evening tutor, she barely made enough to cover rent. Let alone medical bills. Excuse me? Are you Emma Rodriguez? A deep voice interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Rhett, she looked up to see a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his green eyes held an intensity that made her heart skip. Everything about him screamed wealth and power. Yes, that's me, she replied cautiously. Do I know you? I'm Vincent Blackstone. I own Blackstone Industries. He slid into the seat across from her without invitation. I have a proposition that might interest you. Emma had heard of Blackstone Industries. Everyone had. It was one of the largest tech companies in the country. And Vincent Blackstone was known as a ruthless businessman who never lost a deal. What could he possibly want with her? I need a wife, he said bluntly. Temporarily. For 1 week. Emma nearly choked on her coffee. I'm sorry, what? Vincent leaned forward, his expression serious. My grandfather left me the company with one condition. I must be married before my 35th birthday, which is in exactly 8 days. If I'm not, control of the company goes to my cousin Derek, who will destroy everything my grandfather built. So get married, Emma said, still not understanding why he was talking to her. Surely a billionaire can find someone willing to marry him? A shadow crossed Vincent's face. Tried the traditional route, dated socialites, heiresses, women from my social circle. But they all wanted something permanent, something real. I can't give them that. He paused, studying her face. I need someone who will disappear from my life after 1 week. Someone who won't develop feelings or expectations. Emma felt a flutter of hurt at his words, though she didn't know why. And you think I'm that someone? You're a literature teacher, right? You understand stories, characters, playing roles. Plus, you're not from my world. You won't get caught up in the lifestyle or want to stay. He pulled out a check and placed it on the table. $50,000 for 7 days of marriage. All you have to do is sign some papers, attend a few events, and convince people we're in love. Emma stared at the check. It was exactly $10,000 less than what she needed for her brother's surgery. Her heart pounded as she realized this might be her only chance to save him. Why me specifically? She asked. Vincent hesitated. My assistant did research on local teachers. You have no criminal record, no scandals, no social media presence. You're exactly the kind of person who could disappear without a trace. His words stung, but Emma forced herself to focus on the practical side. What would I have to do exactly? Attend my birthday party, where I'll announce our marriage. Accompany me to 2 business dinners. Smile, hold my hand, act like we're madly in love. After a week, we'll have a quiet divorce, and you'll get your money. Emma's mind raced. It sounded too good to be true, but her brother needed that surgery. The doctors had said they couldn't wait much longer. I need $60,000, she said quietly. Vincent raised an eyebrow. 50 is my offer. My brother needs surgery. 60,000 is what I need to save his life. For a moment, something flickered in Vincent's eyes, something that looked almost like respect. Done, he said, pulling out his phone. I'll have. My lawyer dropped the papers. Can you be at my office tomorrow morning at 9? Emma nodded, her heart hammering. Mr. Blackstone, what happens if people don't believe we're really married? Vincent stood, adjusting his tie. Then we both lose everything that matters to us. You suggest you're a very good actress, Mrs. Blackstone. As he walked away, Emma realized she had just agreed to marry a complete stranger. What is she thought? Of her brother lying in that hospital bed, she knew she would do anything to save him, even if it meant pretending to love a man who clearly had no intention of loving her back. Emma stood in front of the massive glass building that housed Blackstone Industries, feeling completely out of place in her simple blue dress and cardigan. The revolving doors seemed to mock her as perfectly dressed business people swept past her into the marble lobby. Mrs. Blackstone, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes, approached her. "I'm Patricia, Mr. Blackstone's assistant. Waiting for you upstairs?" The elevator ride to the 50th floor felt like ascending to another world. Patricia led her through a maze of glass offices and modern art, until they reached a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Vincent looked up from his desk, and Emma felt that same flutter in her stomach she'd experienced yesterday. He was even more handsome in the morning light, but there was something tired about his eyes, as if he hadn't slept. "Good, you came," he said, standing. "I wasn't sure you would." "I keep my promises," Emma replied, lifting her chin. Vincent studied her for a moment, then pressed a button on his desk. "Extend in the team." Suddenly, the office filled with people. A stylist with purple hair and dramatic makeup, a woman carrying garment bags, a man with a briefcase, and several others Emma couldn't identify. "This is Isabella Romano, your stylist," Vincent said as the purple-haired woman circled Emma like a shark. "She'll handle your wardrobe, hair, and makeup. This is Jonathan Hayes, my lawyer, who will explain the contract. And this is Sophia Chen, my PR manager, who will brief you on our supposed love story." Emma felt overwhelmed. "Our love story?" Sophia stepped forward with a tablet. "Met at a charity gala 6 months ago. Love at first sight. You were volunteering at the book drive, and Vincent was immediately charmed by your passion for literature. You've been inseparable ever since, but kept the relationship private, because you're both very private people." "But I've never been to a charity gala," Emma protested. "You have now," Vincent said firmly. "As of today, you're Emma Blackstone, my wife of 6 months. You need to memorize every detail of our relationship." Isabella clapped her hands. "First, we need to completely remake you. No offense, darling, but you look like a librarian." "I am a librarian," Emma said defensively. "Not anymore. You're the wife of a billionaire." Isabella began pulling clothes from the garment bags. "We have 3 hours to transform you before the press conference." The next 3 hours were a whirlwind. Emma was poked, prodded, measured, and styled within an inch of her life. Her shoulder-length brown hair was cut into a sleek bob with subtle highlights. Her makeup was applied with professional precision, making her brown eyes look larger and more mysterious. The clothes were unlike anything she'd ever worn. A black cocktail dress that fit her perfectly, designer heels that made her legs look miles long, jewelry that probably cost more than her yearly salary. When Isabella finally turned her toward the mirror, Emma gasped. The woman looking back at her was sophisticated, elegant, and confident. She looked like she belonged in Vincent's world. "Much better," Isabella declared. "Now you look like a Blackstone." Vincent entered the room and stopped short when he saw her. His eyes widened, and for a moment he seemed to forget how to speak. "Do I look okay?" Emma asked nervously. "You look... ... Double quotes. Vincent cleared his throat. "You look perfect." Their eyes met in the mirror, and Emma felt something shift between them. For just a moment, she forgot this was all pretend. "Are you ready for this?" Vincent asked, moving to stand. Behind her, his hands rested lightly on her shoulders, and Emma felt warmth spread through her body. "As ready as I'll ever be," she whispered. Vincent's reflection smiled at her in the mirror. "Remember, we're madly in love. We can't keep our hands off each other. We finish each other's sentences. We're each other's everything." Emma nodded, trying to ignore how her heart raced when he touched her.
"Got it."
And Emma. Vincent's voice was softer now. "Thank you for doing this. I know it's not easy." She turned to face him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "You're paying me? $60,000. I should be thanking you." "Still," he said, his green eyes searching her face. "This means everything to me." For a moment, Emma almost believed he was talking about more than just the company. But then Sophia knocked on the door, reminding them it was time for the press conference. As they walked toward the conference room, Vincent took her hand. His fingers intertwined with hers, and Emma felt a jolt of electricity run up her arm. "Showtime," he whispered. Emma squeezed his hand, surprised by how natural it felt. Maybe she was a better actress than she thought. Or maybe, just maybe, some part of this was starting to feel real. The press conference room buzzed with reporters and camera flashes. Emma sat beside Vincent at a long table, trying to remember everything Sophia had coached her about. Her new wedding ring caught the light, a stunning diamond that felt heavy, and foreign on her finger. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vincent began, his voice confident and commanding. "I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Emma Blackstone." The room erupted with questions. Emma felt Vincent's hand find hers under the table, his thumb stroking her knuckles in what she hoped looked like affection, but felt like reassurance. "Mr. Blackstone, when did you get married?" called out a reporter from the front row. Vincent smiled, and Emma was surprised by how genuine it looked. "We had a private ceremony 6 months ago." Emma values her privacy, and I respect that. "Mrs. Blackstone, how does it feel to be married to one of the most eligible bachelors in the country?" Emma's mouth went dry. This was her moment. She looked at Vincent, letting herself get lost in his green eyes for a moment. "It feels like a dream," she said softly. "Vincent is the most wonderful man I've ever known. He's kind, generous, and he makes me laugh every day." Vincent's eyes widened slightly at her words, as if he was surprised by her sincerity. He lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. "I'm the lucky one. Emma brings light into every room she enters. She's taught me that there's more to life than work and success." "How did you meet?" another reporter asked. "At a charity book drive," Emma said, remembering her story. "I was volunteering, and Vincent was there representing his company. He walked over to me and said ... She paused, realizing she didn't know what Vincent was supposed to have said. Panic fluttered in her chest. Said, "You have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen," Vincent finished smoothly. "And I asked if she'd let me take her to dinner so I could see it again." Emma felt her cheeks warm.
The way he was looking at her made her feel like those words were true.
"I almost said no," she added. "I thought he was just another rich guy trying to impress me. What changed your mind?" A female reporter asked. Emma looked at Vincent again, and this time she didn't have to pretend. He was different. He didn't try to impress me with his money or his success. He asked me about my work, my dreams, what books I was reading. He saw me as a person, not just a potential trophy. The room fell quiet for a moment, and Emma realized she'd been speaking from her heart. These weren't the scripted answers they'd practiced, Mr. Blackstone. "There are rumors that this marriage is connected to your grandfather's will," a reporter said sharply. Vincent's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "My grandfather wanted me to find happiness, and I have. Is the best thing that ever happened to me." "Are you planning to have children?" another reporter called out. Emma felt her breath catch. This wasn't something they'd discussed. "We're taking things one day at a time," she said carefully. "We want to enjoy being newlyweds first," Vincent added, his arms sliding around her shoulders. "But yes, we both want children someday." The warmth of his touch sent shivers down Emma's spine. For a moment, she let herself imagine what it would be like if this were real. If Vincent really loved her, if they really were planning a future together. After the press conference, they were whisked away to Vincent's penthouse apartment. Emma stood in the middle of the living room, feeling overwhelmed by the events of the day. "You did great," Vincent said, loosening his tie. "That bit about seeing you as a person, not a trophy, was perfect. Very believable." Emma felt a stab of hurt. "It wasn't an act," she said quietly. Vincent paused, his tie half undone. What I said in there? About you being different? About you seeing me as a person? That's how I actually feel?" She looked down at her hands. "I know this is just business to you, but I want you to know that I meant what I said." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When Emma looked up, she found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. "Emma," he said softly, taking a step toward her. Before he could say more, his phone rang. He answered it with a sharp "what?" then listened for a few moments. "Press conference is all over social media," he said after hanging up. "Stock prices are up, and my cousin Derek is furious. The plan is working." Emma nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. For a moment, she'd thought he might say something real, something that had nothing to do with their fake marriage. "There's a guest room down the hall," Vincent said, suddenly formal again. "You'll find everything you need there. Tomorrow we have dinner with my board of directors. It's important that we convince them we're really in love." "Of course," Emma said, matching his businesslike tone. "I'll study the information Sophia gave me." She walked toward the guest room. Vincent called her name. She turned back to find him watching her with that same unreadable expression. "Emma," he said, then seemed to change his mind about whatever he was going to say. Good night, Vincent." As she closed the door behind her, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between them during that press conference. The way he'd looked at her, the way he'd spoken about her, it had felt real. But maybe she was just fooling herself. After all, Vincent Blackstone was paying her to pretend to love him. She couldn't afford to forget that this was all just an act. Emma woke up in the luxurious guest room to the smell of coffee and the sound of Vincent's voice drifting from the kitchen. She'd slept poorly, her dreams filled with green eyes and gentle touches that felt too real. She found Vincent in the kitchen, still in his pajamas and a robe, talking on his phone while making breakfast. He looked younger this way, more relaxed, and Emma felt her heart do that familiar flutter. "No, Derek, I'm not interested in your offer," Vincent was saying, his voice hard. "The company stays in my control. Because I'm married, that's why. ... Yes, happily married." He hung up and turned to find Emma watching him. His expression softened immediately. "Good morning, Mrs. Blackstone," he said with a small smile. "Coffee, please," Emma said, accepting the mug he offered. Their fingers brushed, and she felt that same electric jolt from yesterday. "That was my cousin," Vincent explained, sitting across from her at the breakfast bar. "He's not happy about our marriage. He's been trying to convince the board that it's fake." Emma felt a chill. "What if he finds out the truth?" "He won't," Vincent said firmly. "Not if we're convincing enough. Speaking of which, we need to talk. About tonight's dinner? The board members will be watching us carefully." For the next hour, Vincent briefed her on each board member, their personalities, their relationships with him. Emma tried to focus, but she found herself distracted by the way the morning light caught in his dark hair, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. "Emma, are you listening?" Vincent asked, waving a hand in front of her face. "Sorry," she said, blushing. "I was just ... thinking." "About what?" Emma hesitated. "About how strange this all is. Yesterday, I was a librarian worried about paying my bills. Today, I'm sitting in a penthouse, pretending to be married to a billionaire." Vincent's expression grew serious. "Do you regret it?" "No," Emma said quickly. "I meant what I said yesterday. You're saving my brother's life. I'll never be able to thank you enough for that." Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. "It's not charity, Emma. You're earning every penny." They spent the afternoon shopping for evening wear. Emma felt uncomfortable letting Vincent spend thousands of dollars on clothes she'd only wear for a few days, but he insisted it was necessary for their charade. "You need to look like you belong in my world," he said, as Isabella held up different dresses. "People will be watching everything you do, everything you wear." The dress they chose was a deep emerald green that brought out Emma's eyes. When she emerged from the dressing room, Vincent went very still. "Perfect," Isabella declared. "You look like a queen." But Emma was only looking at Vincent, whose green eyes had darkened as they traveled over her. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. That evening, they arrived at the exclusive restaurant where Vincent regularly entertained business associates. Emma's hand trembled slightly as Vincent helped her out of the car, but his warm touch steadied her. "Remember," he whispered in her ear, "we're madly in love." The dinner was a test Emma hadn't expected. The board members were sharp, intelligent people who asked probing questions about their relationship. Emma found herself drawing on her genuine feelings about Vincent to answer them. "How did you know Vincent was the one?" asked Margaret Winters. "The only female board member?" Emma looked at Vincent, who was watching her intently. "He listens," she said simply. "Really listens. When I talk about my work, my dreams, he doesn't just nod politely. He asks questions. He remembers details. Makes me feel like what I have to say matters." Vincent's eyes softened, and Emma realized she was describing exactly how he'd made her feel during their conversations. "And you, Vincent?" asked Robert Chen, the board chairman. "What drew you to Emma?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, still looking at Emma. "She's genuine," he said finally. "In a world full of people who want something from me, Emma just wants to be herself. She's kind, intelligent, and she has this way of seeing the good in everyone. She makes me want to be a better man." The sincerity in his voice took Emma's breath away. Round the table, the board members smiled and nodded approvingly. Later, as they danced at the restaurant's small dance floor, Emma felt Vincent's arms around her and tried to remember this. Was all pretend. "They believed us," Vincent murmured against her ear. "Margaret actually told me she's never seen me look so happy." "Good," Emma whispered back, trying to ignore how perfectly she fit in his arms. "That's what we wanted." Vincent pulled back to look at her, his expression serious. "Emma, I need to tell you something." "What?" she asked, her heart racing. Vincent started, then seemed to struggle with his words. "Thank you for tonight, for everything. You're an amazing actress." Emma felt her heart sink. Right, actress? She'd almost forgotten this was all a performance. "You're welcome," she said, forcing a smile. But as they continued to dance, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Vincent had been about to say something else. Something that had nothing to do with acting or board meetings or fake marriages. When they returned to his penthouse, Vincent walked her to her door. They stood there for a moment, neither wanting to break the spell of the evening. "Emma," Vincent said softly, reaching up to touch her face. What?" she whispered. For a moment, Emma thought he might kiss her. His eyes dropped to her lips, and she felt herself leaning toward him. But then Vincent stepped back. His expression shuddered. "Good night," he said formally. "Tomorrow's the final test. My grandfather's lawyer will be at the family gathering to verify our marriage. After that, it's over." Emma nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "Good night, Vincent." As she closed the door behind her, Emma realized she was dreading tomorrow. Not because she was nervous about their performance, but because it meant their time together was coming to an end. Somewhere along the way, she'd stopped pretending to care about Vincent Blackstone. The feelings had become real, and she was terrified of what that meant. The morning of Vincent's birthday party dawned gray and drizzling, matching Emma's mood. She'd barely slept, knowing that tonight would be their final performance. Tomorrow she'd sign the divorce papers, take her money, and disappear from Vincent's life forever. She found Vincent in his study, staring out the window at the city below. He was already dressed in his tuxedo, looking devastatingly handsome and completely untouchable. "Ready for tonight?" he asked without turning around. "As ready as I'll ever be," Emma replied, trying to keep her voice light. Vincent finally turned to face her, and Emma was surprised to see something that looked like sadness in his eyes. "Emma, I want you to know that these past few days, they've meant something to me. More than I expected." Emma's heart leaped, but she forced herself to stay calm. "They've meant something to me, too. After tonight, you'll be free to go back to your life. I've already had the money transferred to your account. Your brother's surgery is scheduled for Monday." Emma nodded, fighting back tears. "Thank you for everything." They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between. Then Vincent's phone rang, breaking the spell. The party was held at Vincent's family estate, a sprawling mansion that made his penthouse look modest. Emma had never seen so much wealth and elegance in one place. She clung to Vincent's arm as they moved through the crowd of guests, all of whom seemed to know exactly who she was. "Vincent, darling." A woman with silver hair and sharp eyes approached them. "You must introduce me to your wife." "Aunt Caroline," Vincent said stiffly. "This is Emma." Caroline's smile was cold as she looked Emma up and down. "How lovely." "Tell me, dear, what did you do before you married my nephew?" "I'm a librarian," Emma said, lifting her chin. "How... quaint." Caroline's tone made it clear she thought it was anything but. "And your family? Are they here tonight?" Emma felt Vincent's arm tighten around her. "Emma's family is very private," he said smoothly, much like herself. The evening felt like navigating a minefield. Emma smiled and made conversation, but she could feel the scrutiny of every guest. Some were genuinely welcoming, but others looked at her like she was an interloper who didn't belong. "You're doing great," Vincent whispered during a quiet moment. "Just a few more hours." But Emma's heart was breaking with every passing minute. She'd fallen in love with a man who saw her as a temporary solution to his problems. When midnight struck, she'd turn back into a pumpkin, and Vincent would move on with his life. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vincent announced, taking the microphone, "thank you all for celebrating my birthday with me. This year's been special for many reasons, but most importantly, because I found love." He pulled Emma close, and she felt her heart hammering against her ribs. "Emma, you've changed my life in ways I never expected. You've taught me that there's more to life than business and success." The crowd applauded, but Emma barely heard them. Vincent was looking at her with such intensity that she almost believed he meant every word. "I love you, Mrs. Blackstone," he said softly, his voice carrying over the microphone. "I love you too," Emma whispered back, and realized she meant it with every fiber of her being. Vincent leaned down to kiss her, and Emma felt the world disappear around them. The kiss was soft, tender, and filled with something that felt like promise. When they broke apart, the crowd erupted in cheers. Later, as the party wound down, Emma found herself alone on the mansion's terrace. Think about what had just happened. There you are. Vincent appeared beside her, his bow tie undone and his hair slightly mussed. "I've been looking for you." "I needed some air," Emma said, not looking at him. "It's been a long evening." "Yes, it has." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Emma, we need to talk." Emma's heart clenched. Here it comes, she thought. The polite dismissal, the thanks for a job well done. "I know what you're going to say," she said quickly. "The week is over. I played my part. You played yours. Thank you for the money, and good luck with your company." "Emma, stop." Vincent's voice was sharp. "That's not what I was going to say." She finally looked at him, surprised by the intensity in his eyes. "What I was going to say," Vincent continued, stepping closer, "is that I don't want this to end." Emma's breath caught. "What?" "I don't want to divorce you. I don't want you to disappear from my life. I want this to be real." Emma stared at him, afraid to believe what she was hearing. "You said ... You said you didn't want anything real. You said real relationships were messy and painful." "I was wrong," Vincent said simply. "I was scared. I've been hurt before. And I thought it was easier to keep everyone at arm's length. But you ... double quotes. He reached up to touch her face. "You've shown me what I've been missing." "Vincent," Emma whispered, her heart soaring. "I love you, Emma. Not as part of some business arrangement, not as a performance. I love the way you care about other people, the way you light up when you talk about books, the way you make me want to be better than I am." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too. I've been trying not to, but I can't help it." Vincent pulled her into his arms, and this time when he kissed her, Emma knew it was real. This wasn't for cameras, or board members, or family lawyers. This was just for them. When they broke apart, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "So what do you say, Mrs. Blackstone? Want to stay married to me?" Emma laughed through her tears. "I thought you'd never ask. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes to everything," Emma said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him again. "To staying married. To building something real. To whatever comes next." Vincent spun her around, both of them laughing. "I can't promise it will be easy," he said as he set her down. "My world can be complicated. I'm not afraid of complicated," Emma said, touching his face. "I'm only afraid of losing you." "Never," Vincent said firmly. "You're stuck with me now." As they stood there in the moonlight, Emma realized that sometimes the most unexpected things turned out to be exactly what you needed. She'd agreed to pretend to be Vincent's wife for money, but she'd ended up with something far more valuable. She'd found love, real love, with a man who saw her for exactly who she was. The fairy tale was just beginning.